What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reel Me In, a movie podcast, where you didn't really ask for it, but hey, we're going to give it to you anyways. This is a podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and, well, anything about movies. I'm one of your co-hosts, Chase Lee, and hey guys, listen, if you stumbled across this podcast because you don't have a movie podcast that you go to, or you accidentally stumbled across this one because you were curious, that's okay. Come join the party, and welcome, because if you are not a movie fan, well, hopefully we can convince you to be one. This is a community of film love and film knowledge on my part, not on my co-host part, because he doesn't know anything. And you can go ahead and stay, because we are just a one giant community, and we love having you. If you are a returning listener, welcome. Welcome back, as I should say. And what we typically do on this show, if you are new, is we go over some movie news and some movie trailers and commentate on them for you guys. And then we'll have reviews of certain movies that come out on the weekend, whether it be two blockbusters, a blockbuster and an indie film, or two indie films. We got you covered. And, of course, the box office results to accompany said movies. So that's typically how we run it. This is episode 225, and so our main topics of discussion will be A Quiet Place, and Rooster silhouette blockers, because I will not call it blockers. Joel knows this. The marketing is the truth, and if you're going to put that on your poster, that is what it's going to be called. So that is the topic of conversation. And speaking of the co-host or the cohort of this show, that would be Joel. Joel, how are we doing this week?
Your co-captain. I'm pretty good. It's been a good week. So like today, I introduced my assistant manager at my store to the Harry Potter series. We watched the first one on 4K. That's the first movie I've ever watched on 4K. It looks amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and because he had never seen them, so I was like, it's time. He's a big nerd about Star Trek and stuff, so I was like, time to insert you into another a fandom. So successful start. He really liked the first one and is excited about going forward. So I'm good. Hopeful to keep that going. But yeah, otherwise, just been a pretty typical week. Watched a lot of movies, and as I do. So how was your week?
It was pretty good. A little chill. Let's see. Did I go any? Oh yes, of course I saw Blockers last Tuesday. That was the screening of the week, and of course my screening for this week is Truth or Dare. Blumhouse's Truth or Dare. So that will be interesting. I'm doing that tomorrow. But other than that,
conform to the ad campaign.
Yeah, exactly. No, I will call it Truth or Dare unless someone puts a gun to my head. But other than that, it's been pretty chill, and of course. Joel and I are super excited because we are ramping up for the Dallas International Film Festival, which is in about a month, and we know the first 12 titles that are going to be there so far, and we are pretty excited so far. Like pretty much everything that was listed from the first 12, I'm already excited. You could just kill me right now with the rest of the list.
Yeah, I'm gonna at least try to see those 12, or at least 10 or 9 or 10 of those 12. It'll
exactly.
be. It's a great slate. A couple of really interesting sounding docs that I've heard great things about. Like Won't You Be My Neighbor is going to be one. Cannot wait for that. The Marvin Gaye, was it Marvin Gaye? I think it was a Marvin Gaye doc or something like that.
Well,
anyway.
Joel, you're losing your mind because
I am.
There's a certain A24 movie that's going to be going
Yeah,
there.
yeah, eighth grade. Oh, man, I can't wait for that. And then also First Reformed. So those two of my most anticipated. I sung the praises of the First Reformed trailer last week, and it looks amazing. So cannot wait for both of those, and really excited. Also going to watch not only a bunch at the festival, but we get screeners beforehand. They always do that at every film festival, unless they do screenings. And
Joel, is it too early to announce to the peeps what we're doing that week? Like how we're going to structure the show or multiple shows? What are we doing? Let the people know out there how we're covering this festival.
Yeah, I guess it's a good time to do that. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're each going to be reviewing movies at DallasMoviescreenings.com if you want to go read those / watch those during the week. But at the end of the week for the podcast, what we're going to be doing is we're recording one big episode on all of the movies that we watch. Now, of course, they won't be like super duper in depth. That's what our regular reviews are for. But we are going to be commenting on what we saw, highlights mostly, because I'm pretty sure that we're going to be watching both screeners and going to screenings. And that's going to be a lot to talk about. We don't want to, give all of the movies that we saw. It'd be impossible. But we're going to be talking about major highlights, big ones. Even if we somehow dislike First Reformed, for instance, we're going to talk about it because it's a big one. It's one of the first 12. It's definitely going to be a major screening. And really, I think the biggest get is 8th grade. And so that one's certainly going to be a topic of conversation. Sort of in an informal way, because it might be that we come back and just review it on the show in a more formal basis, but that's basically what we're going to be doing during that week's show. And so we'll record it on Wednesday, and I think that we might throw it up the following Sunday. I'm not sure. We might just decide, you know what, it's just going to go up right now. So we'll let you know there. But yeah, so at the beginning of the festival is when our episode about the summer preview will land, and then the following week will be the festival, because it's in May this year. So that's the other big thing, is that it's in May, not April. It's usually in April. So kind of a weird shift right into the beginning of the summer season. We'll be coming off of Avengers, going straight into a festival. It's going to be crazy. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's you're right, because the past few years it's been in April, and then this year Avengers moved up to April, and then the festival moved to May. So it's like we're doing this weird shift in time now. And the
festival's shortened too, because it used to be 10 days, something like that,
yeah,
10 or 11.
Only 7. Yeah,
now it's only 7, and we're doing 4 days of it, maybe 5 days. I'm probably 5 days.
It depends on if we're not dead.
Yeah, exactly. Because I have Fridays off from work. Just nobody's interested in that. But that means that I can go to the first Friday of the festival, and it'll end the following Thursday, right? I think so.
Yes.
So I'll be able to do Friday, and then I have the following Sunday through Wednesday off. So we'll be going out, and then Wednesday evenings when we're recording the big episode, and then yeah, I'm gonna hibernate for 7 years.
Yeah,
after that.
Basically, we won't talk to each other, because we're going to be living together for 5 days. We're going to get annoyed of each other, and then we're going to part ways, and we're going to come back after a day or so. I'm like, okay, we've calmed down. We're ready to do this. And so,
yes.
Yeah, that's going to be in about a month, and I cannot wait.
I am so excited. It's a great slate already, and I can't wait, because they always surprise us with some other big selections. I'm gonna make a bold prediction.
Do not quote me on this, but if they got 8th grade, I have a sneaky suspicion they got Hereditary for a midnight screening.
Ooh, yeah. It's very possible.
Awesome.
In which case, I'm going to stretch myself and actually see one, because I've never done one before.
Yeah.
I've done the festival several times in the past. Never as press. This will be my first time. Kind of. I sort of covered some stuff last year, but
Joel's gonna be super important this year.
Yeah, but I did it several years before that, and I think I only missed 1 year. I went since 2012. 2012 was my first year, and I've never done a midnight screening because of the whole transit issue. I live very far away from all the theaters that hold it.
But see, Joel's not going to worry about that this year, because I set money aside for our Uber and Lyft rides, so he don't have to worry about that, fam. So
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So if they do Hereditary, which would be an amazing get, that would be huge. To have Hereditary, 8th grade, and First Reformed at your festival, that's insane. And if they do that, then yeah, I'm definitely doing a midnight screening if that's how they do that. So,
but who knows, Joel? Only time will tell, and we'll get to find out the full slate here in a little bit. But Joel, can you let the people know there was something that you wanted to float around? Now, I typically don't answer my phone when Joel calls, because it's just I don't like the guy, so I just kind of hang up or do whatever. I was with my girlfriend. We're about to go watch Rooster Silhouette Blockers, and Joel called me up, and he had a suggestion for the show, and kind of changing up the format a little bit, just so we can make it a little more streamlined, a little bit more professional. And so, Joel, would you like to introduce this possible idea that you were floating around?
Yeah, so before I say it, I want to preface that this is only an idea we're floating. We're not going to suddenly, shove this on all of our listeners. We actually want to hear from you guys. We don't get a whole lot of comments or whatever. But we want to hear from you guys through Twitter, through comments on, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, Spreaker, wherever you comment. I don't know if you can comment on Spreaker, but anyway, wherever you decide to ask this of us or tell us your thoughts on this. I have been thinking lately that the idea of talking about trailers, at least in our capacity as kind of just these, two guys talking on a podcast, kind of contributes to a bit of a I don't want to call it vapid, but I just feel like it's a little YouTube reviewy to talk about trailers, and I just trailers are fun. I just don't take any I don't put any stock into them. I think that they're basically ads. So my thought, and this is what I talked to Chase about, was that we remove, or mostly remove, the trailers segment of the week. Now, this wouldn't apply to big trailers, and I actually don't think I told Chase this on the phone, but we would still cover gigantic trailers, the really, really significant ones that are, obviously we had to talk about them because they're big news items. And those don't just mean big, gigantic blockbuster trailers either. Those would mean significant ones that catch our eye or we feel are necessary to talk to, rather than having a formal section of the show devoted to it. If there's not some big trailer, then we're not going to go scrounging around the internet for them. It's cool to, put the highlight on something like that. But I just feel like this show can be used to talk about things of more of value. And so we want to hear from you guys. What do you think? What do you guys think about this? Getting rid of the formal trailers segment of the show and just kind of moving to, like Chase said, a bit of a more streamlined approach, talking about the big trailer of the week. Whether it be something like Hereditary, which would certainly apply, or Avengers or Fantastic Beasts or whatever, Solo, Star Wars stuff. What do you guys think about that? Please let us know. I'm on Twitter at Real Joel Copling, REL Joel Copling. Chase is at Real Chase Lee, same REL. I copied off of him. And on Facebook, Spreaker, whatever else is you use to comment, please let us know what you think about this, whether you think that the trailer segment is super important or whether you think that we could, dial it back a little bit, talk about the ones that matter when they come up. It makes the shows a little shorter, and I know that people like long shows, but I feel like we can streamline this. I think that we could make this into something a little more workable, something that feels a little bit more like the podcasts that are around right now, but still our own thing. So let us know what you think.
Yeah, I'm serious, guys. I know that a lot of you guys like to listen in secret, and I adore you for that because you guys are like our awesome silent fan base. But you need to let us know if this is a good idea or not, because you guys are the ones that listen to us. And so we need to know if you actually like the trailer section. Let us know if there's a section you want added, section taken away. We want to know feedback, and we will take that into consideration. So whatever you have to do, like Joel said, Twitter, whatever, reach at us, please.
Yeah, just engage with us directly this time. We love you as listeners, but we need you as commenters, voices. Because obviously, if the trailer segment stays, it stays. I don't want to let my personal opinion interrupt all this. It's about you guys more than it's about us. So let us know, and we will adjust accordingly.
And you will learn the easy way when you realize that ignoring Joel is the easiest thing to do. Usually, when I tell him that Fast and Furious is a good, fun franchise, and he tells me otherwise, I just turn the other way and go, "Sure, fam," and I walk away. I mean, that's how easy it is. So you don't have to listen to Joel's opinion. If you like the trailers,
and if you agree with me that the Fast and the Furious franchise, except for one movie, is garbage, then comment that as well.
No,
because
I want to comment that. That is garbage and asinine. Joel, what the hell is going on with the news? What's going on?
Yeah, so there's actually kind of a lot of pretty significant stuff this week. I was reminded of some stuff by looking through this. So there's some pretty big stuff that happened just like within the last few days. I was amazed because I was looking through, and these 5 stories actually came out within the last few days. So the first one is that Solo is headed to Cannes. This is actually not, super duper surprising on the face of it because Cannes likes Star Wars. Attack of the Clones debuted there in 2002. Revenge of the Sith debuted there in 2005, and this one is no different. They're headed to Cannes. This is interesting, though, because the jury selection process has changed since 2005 in significant ways. You didn't have to watch every single movie, particularly the big premieres. But this tells me that they have either seen the movie or they've seen enough of it to say that, yes, we want this to be a big premiere. And sometimes it's seeing the whole movie now. Sometimes it's seeing a great, bit of it at least, and that's probably the case here. But in any case, I like this. I like to hear this because it's a vote of confidence. And there was a trailer that just dropped. We're going to talk about that one more in depth. That certainly qualifies, by the way. We would talk about that one anyway. We're going to talk about that one next week because it kind of broke late. So, but that's a really good trailer. It's a really much better second trailer, I think, than the teaser. And I think that it showcases that this is a movie having fun. It's sort of like a Baby Driver-esque kind of Star Wars Baby Driver to me. That's what it seems like. And I think that the fact that it's headed to Cannes, it's not in competition, of course. It's just a premiere, but it's a pretty big vote of confidence, and I like to hear this.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that are you a little more excited now after hearing about all this and seeing the new trailer?
Well, you guys will know my thoughts on the trailer next week because I'm going to keep you guys in limbo because you know that Joel's going to be the fan no matter what. But I am going to be the voice that cuts through because you guys have no idea where I'm going to land with these trailers and what I think. But in terms of moving to Cannes, I think you are correct. It is a vote of confidence. I also think it's really smart of them to put it in the forefront like that, especially when it's going to... Because Cannes about a week after Avengers comes out, right?
I believe so. Yeah, early May.
So here's Disney's thinking. They get Avengers coming out at the end of April. They let that run for a week. Let it gain all the momentum, all the box office bucks, and just completely dominate. It's going to dominate in week 2 as well. The first 2 weeks are pivotal. But you get that first week out of the way, most of the people that were going to go see the movie are or have already seen it. Now, they need to concentrate on Solo. And I think putting that into a film festival as prestigious as Cannes, that is genius. Because that will come out like a week and a half after Avengers, and they can start ramping up the marketing for that. And so, yeah, I think it's a smart move business-wise. And, I didn't know about the previous Star Wars films going there and premiering there. So, yeah, if it falls in line with the franchise, it falls in line with this one. And you guys will know my thoughts about the second trailer next week.
Yeah, so it runs May 8th to the 19th. So I was right. It's 2 weeks after. Is that 2 weeks?
Yeah, just about, which is even more perfect.
Because it's a Tuesday, so about a week and a half or so. And it's pretty great. It's interesting that they would do this. I think that it'll probably play near the end of the festival just because they'll want to control that buzz. But because I don't think it's opening the festival. But I think it might be closing it. So May 19th, that makes sense because then they can pivot right to the American premiere, which I'm sure is probably going to be like on May 20th. And then they'll have the screenings, within that week. So, it's a pretty great vote of confidence. And then also in Star Wars news this week, it's sort of news. It's mostly about, kind of rumors and speculation. But basically, there's the whole big question mark of Carrie Fisher's presence in Star Wars Episode 9. And, there's this question going around, sort of egged on a little bit by somebody asking it of Mark Hamill, who does not like the idea of recasting her. But there is this question of should they recast her. And I've been thinking about this week. I'll turn to the rumor in a second. But, I feel like, there's some people who are kind of calling for the fact that she shouldn't even be in the movie. The character, I mean, not obviously Carrie Fisher's not with us anymore. She can't be in the movie. I'm talking about the character. And for me, that becomes a logistical problem and just a general problem because the end of The Last Jedi suggested to the audience that she was going to be playing a bigger role in the rebellion, and I think that it would be a bigger disservice to Carrie Fisher to kill off the character, for instance, or just not even have her in the movie, just like nobody comment on it. So I feel like they should recast her. Now, whether or not they should recast her with the person that I'm about to talk about, I don't know. That's not really up to me. I have to honestly think about that for a couple of months because it's going to be very interesting to see anybody else play this character, so close to what I presume was the end of her arc as Leia. But the rumor is floating around that Meryl Streep is being talked to or something about playing this role, and basically it's because they were best friends. And I think Meryl Streep played like a version of her in another movie, Postcards from the Edge, from the early 90s or late 80s or whatever. So I think that's kind of what started it. Perhaps it was just a rumor that was started by the fact that, this kind of has happened before. And so people were like, oh man, what if this happened? And then a rumor started. I don't know. I wouldn't mind that decision. I think that it would be very distracting to have Meryl Streep in the movie, but they have to do something. And if they're going to go with, somebody who's a friend, whoever it is going to be distracting because Carrie Fisher was friends with very name actresses. So if they're going to go with somebody who wants to, respect her memory like that by playing the role, it's going to be distracting whoever it is. So what about you, Chase? I know you don't have a whole lot of stake in this, but what do you think about casting the character and particularly Meryl Streep playing the role? So what is your take on all this?
Okay, so you have to look at it from my point of view, and I actually, I'm on the same playing field as Joel, but listen to what I'm about to say. I honestly don't care who plays it, because I don't have an emotional investment as like someone like Joel, where it's like Star Wars is this guy's life. Star Wars and Harry Potter will always be a part of this man's life, and I can see where recasting can be distracting. Like, I can see that. I honestly don't care, but I have to be in Star Wars fans' shoes. If I were to watch a Marvel movie or any type of superhero movie, and I have been accustomed to someone playing that role for many, many, many years, and they just did a swap after the actor or actress has unfortunately died, or they moved on, or they quit, I would actually be I would be furious, and it would be distracting. And that's only because my brain has been trained to, think of it as one way, and it's just going to be a complete, and utter abrupt, kind of nuisance. And so I understand it being a distraction. I understand the frustration if people have for it. I understand if people don't care. For me, Meryl Streep's a good actress, and they were good friends, so I'm cool with that if they want to recast her. I do agree with you, though, that they should not kill her off whatsoever, because that would just be in poor taste. But if you just recasted, I'm cool with that. But on the same coin, I understand the frustration and the distraction, because if they did to one of my superheroes, I would understand completely.
Yeah. It's certainly a tricky question. It's tricky material to try to do that, or tricky line to walk to try to do this, just because of the iconography of that character. And so I will certainly be interested to see where they go. I'll be saddened because obviously Carrie Fisher is no longer with us. That loss still stings to me. And it's relatively fresh. I know that it happened, more than a year ago, but it's still relatively fresh after seeing her in The Last Jedi, just a few months ago. But you have to press forward, and that's sort of my pragmatic take. So shifting gears entirely, we have this interesting bit of news about how Guillermo del Toro is going to be curating a new genre label with Fox Searchlight, a company with whom he has signed a new what is it, like a 5-film deal or something like that, some sort of deal.
It's a pretty big deal that he just signed with him.
Yeah, it's insane because and it's really great news. I like this news a lot because he's clearly a talented voice. There's a lot of moving parts to this that are going to be interesting to watch, particularly given the fact that Fox Searchlight is going to be bought by Disney. Does this mean that under the purview of Fox Searchlight, he's going to be able to kind of let loose with his Disney inspirations a little bit, influences? This will be interesting because I know that he has a lot of those. It was evident in The Shape of Water. So, it's very cool. I like this. Obviously, this is going to be a horror label, so probably not, a lot of Disney inspirations there. But I like this a lot. I think that they have nabbed a great voice with Del Toro. He's one of my favorite working directors. Just won an Oscar, so that gives him a little more cred than he already had, which is great to see. And I'm excited to see this. Chaser, is this not awesome news?
This is a piece of news. Listen, if I am Fox Searchlight and I hire Joel to, direct a movie, write, produce, and just kind of go wild with it, I have faith in the man. You can make whatever the hell you want. You make the movie, it's received well, people love it. Oh my God, it wins a Best Picture Oscar and a Best Director and a bunch of other minor categories. Me as a studio. Hey Joel, would you want to sign this 5-picture deal with me? Of course. Of course it's going to happen. So this is a no-brainer piece of news. It's smart to keep him housed under a specific studio. A lot of studios will do this. Case in point, A Quiet Place, when we get to the box office, dominated this weekend. And now I would not be surprised if Paramount nabbed John Krasinski to sign a first look deal where like any ideas that he wants to direct or any movies that he wants to direct, they get first, dibs at it. It's the way the business goes. But him creating, his label under Fox Searchlight, totally understandable. The curious part is what you brought up with the whole Disney thing. 'Cause once that acquisition goes through, obviously he's still going to work for Fox Searchlight, but I'm wondering, since he does take a lot of inspiration from Disney characters and all that stuff, if they would allow him to kind of go adult style with their, princesses,
their properties,
properties and stuff, and
especially their golden age movies, because he really loved those. Those were the movies, of his childhood. Stuff like Pinocchio and all of that. I mean, it would be interesting to see if he actually uses, something like Pinocchio in one of his movies, and just skews it to be adult horror. And it's a pretty exciting piece of news. You're absolutely right. It's going to be interesting to see how, he does under the umbrella of Fox Searchlight and Fox Searchlight under the umbrella of Disney once this goes through, because obviously this is going to overlap. And by the time they acquire it, it's going to be a couple years still, but by the time they acquire it, he's probably going to be in production on his first movie, I would suspect, considering that this is clearly moving forward, and I'm sure that he's ready to bring more ideas to the table. So, really exciting. And, when it comes to this is a much more exciting piece of news involving a 5-picture deal than when Adam Sandler did a 5-picture deal with Netflix. That was that was the dark days. All right, so moving on to another member of the Three Amigos, because as we know, that's Del Toro, Alfonso Cuarón, and Alejandro González Iñárritu. Cuarón, he has a movie coming up that's called Roma. Now, this one is one that I mentioned on my top 10 most anticipated, and it's basically him going back to, Spanish-speaking movie. It's going to be it was shot entirely in Mexico, and it was shot in 70 millimeter, which. So this is very sad. This is actually my least favorite bit of news, to say the least. Netflix has grabbed this movie. So here's what I'm wondering, Chase. Is this a step too far? Because I've been kind of worrying about Netflix. You know, they've not had a great week. They canceled that show Everything Sucks, which was really, really highly rated. And people were very angry about that cancellation. And then now they have this where they take a movie that is meant for theatrical consumption and give it a primarily home viewing platform. I know that they're going to release this in theaters because they would be stupid not to. It's sort of it's a situation. It's a Mudbound situation. You know, they're not going to not release this in some theaters somewhere. It's the same thing with The Irishman when that comes out. I can't imagine them saying no to the idea of showing a Martin Scorsese movie in theaters. But the great amount of people in the country are going to watch this movie that's meant for theatrical consumption at home. And I just have to wonder, is this basically a sign of them going a little too far?
Yeah, I would say so. Just because with stuff like The Cloverfield Paradox, for instance, that's like a fine movie to watch on TV. You don't really have to go to the theater for that. That's not really something that you must leave your house for. Now, as much as I'm excited for like The Irishman, that is one of my only hesitation is like, is it going to diminish the quality watching on a small screen when Scorsese films stuff cinematically? And Cuarón is the same. He's the same way. If you guys have ever seen, like Gravity or Children of Men, like the guy has like a good grasp on making anything cinematic. He just made Sandra Bullock float around in space feel cinematic. Like that's how talented this guy is. And so, and of course, he directed one of the films in one of Joel's favorite franchises, Harry Potter. And so, he's been around for a while. And so him, doing this movie after Gravity, it's like, he's coming back 70 millimeter, getting to his roots, and then, it's going to be dumped on Netflix. And so I know people like Joel and I, we are going to try to venture out to go see it in theaters.
If I can see this in 70 millimeter, I'm going to try.
Exactly. It's one of those things to where, like, if you are a film junkie or a film nut, you know that 70 millimeter is absolutely gorgeous in a theater. My last experience, I believe, was The Hateful Eight, and
I really wish that they would have showed 2001: A Space Odyssey here, because it just recently had a revival, and it was shown on 70 millimeter in theaters across America for its 50th anniversary, because it just had one on the 2nd, a week ago today. And considering I think that that's the greatest movie ever made, I really wish that they would have showed it here, because I would have flocked to that. I would have been the first in line. But I really want to see more of these here. They just don't hold them in Dallas. It's really sad, unless it's something like a wide release.
Yeah. And Joel, it's one of these stories to where it's disappointing to us, but look at it this way. And I guess I'll be the devil's advocate here. If it goes on Netflix, people actually might be more prone to watch it at home than go to the cinemas like us, which would give more eyes on Cuarón's work, if that makes any sense. So it does have the advantage of giving him more eyeballs on this, but I know that people like you and me will...
The only problem for me is that it kind of gives Netflix this then go ahead to say, okay, well, now we can acquire more things that are shot in 70 millimeter, and then that
true.
Yeah, that kind of reduces the theater experience of something that is, I think, the most cinematic film stock, honestly. And it's just, so I don't know. I just find that a little disappointing.
Well, and here's the thing. It's like you said, they'd be dumb not to release this in theaters. And Cuarón's a smart dude. He kind of reminds me of Quentin Tarantino in that way, to where if he signs any of his movies over to a distributor, you can bet your ass that he has in some type of clause or some type of subtext that it needs to be released in a theater for at least 2 weeks. Like he's not going to just hand it over to Netflix after all that hard work shooting on 70mm and go, oh, okay, yeah, just, stream it. No. He's a powerful enough director to where he's got some say, to where he's like, okay, this is my contract. If you're going to release this on Netflix, you're also going to release it in a couple theaters across the country, for one, awards consideration, and two, of how the movie is meant to be seen. So I know that he's a smart dude, and he probably has a clause in there somewhere.
Now let's just hope that it opens here in theaters, and then that we can see it, within at least like 50 miles or something. In any case, it's kind of a disappointing bit of news for me. I was very much excited to see this on a big screen. Hopefully, I'll still be able to really hope so. But honestly, though, whatever the case, I'll watch it. I mean, if I have to watch it on Netflix, I'll watch it. But in any case, I really wanted to see it on a big screen. This next one is something that we're going to be watching on a small screen, or at least I'm going to. I don't know about you, but Amazon, of course, we reported this a while ago that they have acquired rights to adapt The Lord of the Rings into a TV show, and we have learned what it costs, which is insane. And we have learned that it's going to be adapted into 5 seasons of a show. Now, this is pretty interesting because I feel like what they could do is probably pack most of the middle episode into, about a season and a half, give the first episode a season and a half or so, and then, probably a full two seasons for the last one. And that, or should I say book, not episode, but novel, installment, whatever you want to say, part. I like this. I think that it's a little worrisome that they are spending $1 billion on this. That is an insane amount of money. That's, I think, probably the most amount of money ever spent on anything in terms of like one specific thing that they have named it. They have named the price $1 billion. I think that might be the most any company spent on anything entertainment-wise at one time, or at least that they've announced at one time. Obviously, they've spent $1 billion on the Harry Potter movies, but that's over time. That's many things. That's not, announced all at once. It's a bit overwhelming, to be completely honest. But I'm excited to see the result. Obviously, if they're spending this much money, it's going to be pretty top dollar. So what are your thoughts on this?
Jeff Bezos, if you are listening, what kind of money you got in that safe, fam? Like, seriously, like, I realize that people purchase useless crap on Amazon all the time. I'm a part of that problem, and I'm assuming that's where they get their funds. But $1 billion? Good
crazy.
Lord!
I know that Amazon is almost going to be worth $1 trillion pretty soon.
So yeah, it's like a drop in the bucket for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
people don't realize how much $1 trillion is.
Yeah.
And how little in comparison $1 billion is. It's not very much.
Yeah, so. It's insane how much Amazon's worth, but when you think about, movies they invest in, music, shipping stuff, buying stuff, acquiring and other stuff with stocks, like, they're just a conglomerate, man. And, if they want to throw $1 billion at this, maybe that will entice people to buy Amazon Prime. I have no clue. I don't personally purchase it each month. I know my roommate does, but I'll watch stuff occasionally. I'm just not really like in tune to Amazon Prime stuff. But if they want to sink in $1 billion, what this tells me is at least they're going to make it look authentic, which means most of that's going to be travel. And I would suspect if they're going to be spending that much, they're going to be traveling to New Zealand, because if they're not, then they'd be stupid. Because, they already have the scenery there. So, it's their money. They can throw it at it, but I'm kind of like with you where it's like, calm down, fam. Like, that's $1 billion. Like, can you at least just announce one season at a time or something?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll definitely check it out. I like the movies enough. I like the Hobbit movies. That's right. You heard me here. And so I like that. I like the lore. I like the, world that, Tolkien has created. I want to see it adapted anywhere. So I'm down with this. And so if they want to kind of throw a bunch of eggs in one basket for this, Joel, I'm totally down for it.
Yes, yes. So that's the end of our news segment this week. Let us know what your favorite is. Mine is probably the Del Toro news. That's probably the most exciting thing this week
I agree
for
because
me.
we don't know what the 5 movies are. They're going to be all
Right?
random, and they're going to be all just Del Toro's vision
Originals,
and
originals,
originals.
unless of course they allow him to make Hellboy 3 or something. But
Oh my God, Joel! You almost gave me a heart attack. That I didn't even think about that.
right,
That
yeah.
could be
I mean,
true.
if
Oh
Disney
wow.
acquires Fox Searchlight and Fox Searchlight, has enough fans of the first two, maybe hopefully finally they'll let him do it, and that would be awesome because I love the Hellboy movies. So I've been waiting for Hellboy 3 for 10 years now. Make it happen. All right. So let's transition to some of the trailers this week. There were some pretty big ones. Our first one is mostly my co-host's forte, but
Joel,
you know what?
stop throwing me under the bus with this franchise. I like it. Just get off my back.
So it's the trailer for the first Purge. Basically, my problem with this is the fact that the first Purge is a title that suggests that we are going to learn about how the Purge came about. That at least to me, maybe I should have read it more literally because this seems to be literally the first Purge, and in that case, they're literally just taking the
Yeah, it's a
later
prequel.
purges and transitioning or whatever, placing that into the context of it being the first one. Whatever, I couldn't be less interested. I didn't see the last one, whatever it was called, and election year. There we go. I hated the first one. I thought that the second one was fine, but I lost interest. I think this basically just whatever. I'll hand it over to Chase. I know he's a fan of this trailer.
Okay, so let me get down and nerdy and sweaty for you guys for a second. All right, so I'm excited to see this because one, it's the prequel to the whole franchise, so we get to actually see the effed up minds in the government of who actually like came up with this idea and like implanted it on people. But here is the curious part, because the first poster that they had was a Donald Trump hat, the red MAGA hat, and so if this is a prequel, I'm wondering if this one's gonna actually be in like today's time, and like the other ones that we saw were like in the future type of deal. So I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. I know I'm like speculating over something that's probably not even worth talking about. Whatever. But I actually like the trailer. It gave off the same Purge vibes as the others, where it was kind of like that hyper-realized violence that's even more disturbing because you realize these are people killing people. This isn't like, some superhero defeating a villain. This isn't like, superpowered beings or anything supernatural. These are real-life people killing other people for the sake of, like, their own, pleasures. And that's what's more disturbing to me. And that's why I've liked the kind of atmosphere that the Purge films have been kind of fixed around. Now, I'm not saying these movies are perfect. They're not. Typically, the writing and the acting is where these movies fall apart. Like, they're absolutely horrendous when it comes to that category. But I do like the overall idea and the overall universe of this, crazy, like, just effed up premise. And I do like the kind of like realistic horror aspects to it. So maybe I'm the only crazy one in the country that likes these movies. I thought the first one was a good idea, but I thought the follow-through was a little bit flat. I love Anarchy because they actually get to go out on the streets and really play this like cat and mouse game that's really exciting to watch. And then Election Year wasn't my favorite, but it was still an entertaining, disturbing ride for sure. So I am curious to see, as someone that has enjoyed these movies, to see who the minds were behind the first Purge and why they decided to do it. So I am totally fine with this trailer. It's not, something that it's not gonna be nominated for awards. It's not gonna be. So it's whatever, Joel. I like it. It's it's one of those trailers that was like, yeah, I'm down to see another one.
Yeah, I guess it's weird because the first one I had a major problem with the fact that they gave us this great premise and then kept it inside, and also what they kept inside was a completely generic, stalk and slash thing. And
you know what, Joel? That is fair enough. I will give you that.
the second one opened it up, and I think that the acting was a little more consistent from the performers, particularly Frank Grillo. I do like him, or did like him in that movie. But by the time the third one came out, I just had no interest. I don't know. Even though I liked the last one, I just couldn't really get much interest up to check it out. I think it was also a busy weekend of movies, so I just didn't see it. And I probably am not seeing this unless there's nothing else that week and we have to review something. So it just wasn't. I guess it's just like these things aren't weird enough for me. But you know what is weird enough for me is the next trailer. So take it away.
Okay, so this is a film that would have been kind of helpful for me in high school, given the title, How to Talk to Girls at Parties. But if my high school was actually like this, I'd be taking a lot of acid, fam. All right, so this one, the best way to describe it, I'm just going to give you the IMDb synopsis because it's just downright bonkers. An alien touring the galaxy breaks away from her group and meets two young inhabitants of the most dangerous place in the universe, the London suburb of Croydon. So if I had to summarize an actual vibe of the trailer, I want you to imagine if Edgar Wright mixed Scott Pilgrim and The World's End together in one movie. That's exactly what this movie is. But it is directed by John Cameron Mitchell. Never heard the name before until I looked it up, and I was like, oh snap. He actually directed and wrote the infamous movie Short Bus. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's one of those movies that's infamously known because they actually portray real sex acts on film. And it is not technically pornography. It is technically a feature film that was in theaters. So that's where that guy's from.
I've actually always wanted to see that movie. I've heard it's pretty great. So
I have never seen it. I just know that, like, when I was looking this guy up, I was like, what has he done? I was like, I've never heard of that. Short Bus. Okay, I've heard of that for all the wrong
and
reasons.
I know that his obviously he's the guy who did Hedwig and the Angry Inch, which was a pretty popular musical in the 90s, and then he adapted it for the screen. He directed it and starred in it, so that's pretty cool. And he did Rabbit Hole a couple years ago. I think did he do another thing, but can't remember. Anyway, it's pretty crazy.
it's definitely a weird trailer coming from A24. They just dropping trailers left and right now like it's nothing. Yeah. This is by far the weirdest trailer they've dropped so far out of the slew of trailers we've gotten in a few weeks. But it has Elle Fanning in it, Nicole Kidman, Ruth Wilson. That's primarily the big cast. And the rest are, pretty unknown, but, they all look pretty solid. Now, one of our friends, Brian, we all have a group chat. I don't know if he told you this, Brian, or Joel, but Brian told me that he did not like this trailer.
Yeah, he told me the same thing, and I get it. It's one of those things where you got to be on the wavelength from the opening scene, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a very interestingly cut trailer. I will say that.
I think
I don't know if it does. I don't know if it does a complete job of selling the tone, but I'm totally in the tank for this movie. I think that it looks completely bonkers. Very, very. It's played in such a way that's sort of semi-straight, like it's trying to be kind of sincere in its bonkersness, if that makes sense. But it looks very much like my thing. I can't wait for this. I think that it looks like a lot of fun. Looks like Nicole Kidman's having a lot of fun. He put it that she was playing the Goblin King, which, is, I guess, kind of true. But I think that she's got her own thing going on here, too. I've heard great things about this. It's been kind of in the pipeline for a couple of years now. And now it's finally coming around.
Yeah,
I would love it. I would love it if this is another one they surprise us with a diff. I don't think that they will, but I'm hoping.
I would just fall to the floor if they just got the whole A24 package for this year.
Yeah.
And I would be like, God bless you, diff. God bless you. This is right up my alley. I always like weird stuff, and this is like weird sci-fi, comedy, coming of age, romance. It mixes in a lot of genres together, but it's weird enough to where the trailer, like you said, didn't really sell the movie that well. But I want to see this for two reasons. One, because A24 has eclectic taste and they know how to pick movies out. And two, It is so bonkers and weird. I kind of have to see it now. This is one of those movies that's screaming out for attention, even if it looks terrible. It's like, if A24 is willing to slap their name on this and distribute this movie, obviously they see something weird and unique with it, so I'm down for its weird and uniqueness as well. So
it's kind of one of those things where I genuinely don't think that they quite found the vibe with the trailer, because I think that this is a movie with completely unexpected vibes. But it's not for a lack of trying. It's not like they just slap something together.
To be fair, this is the type of movie that would be really hard as hell to market.
That's what I'm thinking happened here. Is I think that they got together, people together, said, try to find the right tone for this trailer. And I don't know if they quite did that, but I don't even think that this seems like a movie where it's possible to do that. And so that's why I'm so interested in this. It's such an interesting trailer, even if I don't know if it quite goes there, but it's a bonkers trailer. It looks like a fun movie. And our next one, I had at number 2 on my most anticipated list, because it's been floating around for the last 20 years. It's The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Now, the director, Terry Gilliam, has had a kind of a rough couple of weeks because of himself. He basically came out and said that the victims of Harvey Weinstein's sexual assaults, kind of asking for it if they entered into a relationship with him in a professional sense, which makes no sense and is also completely awful. And so he's further endangering his release of this movie. I don't get why he even had to speak up. This close to having his movie out, it's completely flabbergasting, if that's a word, to me. And but whatever about the trailer, it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like he put his heart and soul into this. I love the looks of Jonathan Pryce. I love the looks of Adam Driver. I love the look. I think that it looks pretty stunning. It definitely doesn't feel like it has that, we finally slapped this all together vibe. It very much looks visually lush and beautiful. It's just a great all-around trailer, and I was happy to finally see that evidence of this movie exists. So, Chase, I know that you didn't even know about this until that show, so you don't quite have the investment, beyond that show that I do, but what did you think about this trailer?
I'm totally down for it. It kind of reminded me of like a more weird and adult version of or a modern Princess Bride or something, where it was kind of gave off that fairy tale vibe, and it's going to have Terry Gilliam's weirdness all over it. And I'm down for it. I had no idea what it was even about, and it deals with time travel, and I like you said, the vibe of it is very cool. It's very fairy tale-ish. It's going to have this adult vibe to it. Adam Driver looks really cool. I didn't even know he was in it. And of course, I love the Skarsgårds, and Stellan Skarsgård is in this one. Yeah. I'm totally down and take a chance on this one. So thank you for bringing this weirdness to my attention.
You are most welcome. So what about our next trailer?
Oh God. All right.
I give him all the interesting trailers.
No, he doesn't. All right. So the next one is Night School, and it's got Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, and directed by Malcolm D. Lee. Okay, here's the deal, folks. So Girls Trip dropped on HBO, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. I did not see it last year, so I was excited to see it. People raved about it. Oh my God, it's one of the best comedies I've seen in years. Okay. I've heard you loud and clear, and I will take a gander. I watched 40 minutes of it, and I had to go to the bathroom. When I came back, I had no desire to watch it. I shut it off, and I went to bed, and I haven't touched it since. I did not like it at all. I listen, and I'm gonna go ahead and just say this right now. I have enjoyed Tiffany Haddish in real life, whether it be at the Academy Awards or when she was presenting, seen her in interviews. She is a lovable, warm, funny human being. When I saw Girls Trip, I don't know what the hell people were seeing, but I didn't care for her one bit. I thought she was annoying as hell. I usually like Regina Hall. She was fine. Queen Latifah was oddly cast. Jada Pinkett Smith, whatever. I didn't find the movie funny at all. I didn't laugh. I didn't smirk. I didn't even grin. And I was like, this is what people were raving about. So I was completely confused because I've liked Haddish like in her real life kind of side stuff rather than her movies so far. So with that being said, Night School, her character looks better in this than it did in Girls Trip, but I think the comedy overall, once again, comedies are really hard to nail in trailers because if you show too much, then when you get to the movie, you've seen all the good stuff. Or if you just show the mediocre and the bad stuff, then it turns people away, and then people might be surprised in the theater when they see it. I didn't like it. It's whatever. But I will say that her playing kind of like a straight-laced teacher is a lot better than what I saw in the 40 Minutes of Girls Trip. So I will give her that. I want to see her in other stuff because I know that she's got that kind of energy that you need in a comedy. And that's why I actually think that her bouncing off of Kevin Hart is good. It's a good pairing. And honestly, it's one of these ideas that you would see like in a 90s comedy. That's not the issue. It's the fact that the trailer made me laugh. It did not. It's from the same director as Girls Trip. And so when you have those two coming back to do this, I'm a little hesitant because of what I've seen in Girls Trip so far. And I didn't really think this trailer was all that funny. But I don't know. Joel, do you think differently?
I actually don't. I didn't see any of Girls Trip. I'll probably try to catch up before this one. Just to, be up to date and kind of on the Tiffany Haddish train, if you will. Particularly because, Uncle Drew is also coming out, so she's going to have a...
that one looks pretty good. Even with its, stupidity...
That one looks funnier and weirder than this.
Yes.
This looks really thin and flat to me.
Yeah.
I got a couple of good chuckles. The "Come Get Your Chicken from the Lord" was pretty funny. When he's wearing the chicken suit, I don't know. I chuckled. The last joke. What was it? Actually, I've forgotten what the last joke is. I just remembered that the last joke made me laugh. And also the little exchanges. Oh no, I know what it was. Taran Killam looks like he's having fun here, because he's he's giving his character a black voice, and the other characters are calling him on it, and he's using the black voice to quiet them down. Anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But, the energy between Haddish and Hart does look like the best thing here. But as a comedy, it looks really thin and flat. I did not care for this trailer. With comedies, though, I find that a lot of their trailers aren't very good. For instance, I liked this week's raunchy comedy, and I did not like the trailer for it. So I just feel like there's commonly a struggle to try to make comedy trailers look appealing, and sometimes they just don't pick the best jokes, or they intentionally hide the best jokes and they put the worst ones in. It's kind of a game, and it's a game they lose a lot of the time, or maybe I lose. I don't know who loses. Somebody loses. But with this one, it doesn't look very interesting. What looks completely insane and awesome is our next trailer, which is a movie that kind of brought the house down out at Sundance. I think it was Sundance earlier this year, and that is Revenge. This one is a female-directed, female empowerment sort of violent fantasy kind of thing, where this young woman gets thrown off a cliff. She is impaled on a tree branch and left for dead and thought dead, but she's actually not dead. She is coming back. This is a very bloody trailer. It's the Red Band, and it looks completely awesome, and I was completely sold on it. It doesn't look at all subtle. It's very obviously an empowerment fable, but and they make that clear with a line of dialogue, literally in the trailer. But I think it looks like a lot of really lurid, very visually stunning fun. So, were you a fan of this one?
Absolutely. I was looking it up while you were talking, and it premiered at TIFF last year and Fantastic Fest. So
Okay.
it premiered in September of last year, and this actually makes perfect sense because when you watch the trailer, you're like, because I was sitting there thinking like, did this premiere at Fantastic Fest? Because like this is totally right up their alley, and
It does seem like it's right up their alley. Yeah.
oh yeah, it's bloody. It's just a great revenge film. It's got a lot of style to it. I love the cinematography. I love the color palette. I like the fact that it's a female as the main character. It reminds me so much of the films The Last House on the Left and the I Spit on Your Grave movies, where those are a little bit more like hardcore, like expletive horror revenge films. This is also going to be that, but this is going to be more set on the gore and the violence and stuff. But it's done in such a stylish fashion that it totally added its own unique style to the trailer. Because usually when you hear movies about revenge or someone, you know, avenging someone else, it's the same story that we've seen over and over again. But this one had such enough a different flair and a different style to it that I'm actually excited for this, because I'm a fan of these type of like hyper violent movies, and so this trailer won me over.
Yeah, man, it's so much fun. This one opens in May, right? Probably
Yeah.
June for us, I would imagine. But it's gonna be terrific. That might be my favorite trailer. I pretty much like the main three: the How to Talk to Girls at Parties, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, and Revenge. Pretty much equally. I don't know if I can pick, but do you have a choice, or is it hard to pick for you?
I like them all, but Night School.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Like,
that's right, because you like
I
the
would
first
rather
Purge.
watch. Like, I know people hate the Purge movies, but I would bet anyone that they would rather watch that than Night School.
Probably the same here too. Yeah, I think Night School is probably my least favorite trailer of the week. Um, all right, yeah. So let us know what yours is, and down below, or on Twitter, or whatever, however you choose to tell us. And we're gonna move on to our reviews. So as Chase said, our first one is For a Quiet Place. Now this one is from director John Krasinski. It's his, I think, third film as a director.
Yes, third film.
Yeah, he did the David Foster Wallace adaptation, Brief Interviews with Hideous Men, and the ensemble dramedy The Hollers. I did not see either of those, mainly because I don't think that either of them actually opened in Dallas, or if they did, then it was very quiet. See, A Quiet Place. Oh boy.
God, Joel's already started with the puns. Kill me now.
Yeah, as soon as I thought of that, I had this brief moment like, should I go through with that? And then I did. In any case, this is nothing like his previous movies except for the fact that it's about family. But it's a horror film starring Krasinski and his real life wife Emily Blunt as a married couple. I don't even really think that we learn their names, and in fact, I can't even remember her name. But let's see. I'm just gonna find out right now.
They are listed with names in IMDb as the Abbotts.
Yeah. Okay. Here it is. Wait. Evelyn. She's Evelyn and he is Lee. And then their children are played by Millicent Simmons, Noah Jupe, and briefly Cade Woodward. Marcus is Noah Jupe's character. There's Regan, played by Simmons, and then I forgot the other kid's name. Anyway, yeah, so this is a family that's kind of living in this weird dystopian future where, or I guess apocalyptic future, not really dystopian, where an alien race has invaded Earth, and they are incredibly acute at hearing. And so you have to remain extremely quiet, which these characters definitely do, and this movie does. Otherwise, basically above a whisper, you will be tracked down and killed within about 10 or 15 seconds. And that is exactly what happens, and it's not even a spoiler to say this because it happens in the opening scene. This is what happens to the youngest child of this family, so they are then learning how to deal with that several months later, when Evelyn has decided to become pregnant again. So I'm going to set that very interesting decision aside for now. I'll just address that in a little bit, actually, in my positives. So I was looking forward to this. I was very much looking forward, especially after Get Out came out, to see another comedian kind of take on the horror genre. Of course, this is a very different horror movie than Get Out. It's definitely not the same thing. That one was very much a social thriller. This one's a little more standard in terms of what it's going for. It's very much a suspense piece with some creature feature stuff added in, but I like that stuff when it's done well, and I was very excited for this. And I'm happy to report that it's pretty terrific. So Chase, take it away.
Yeah,
were you excited for this?
Yeah, no, I mean the trailer won me over. I was really surprised that Paramount decided to go with the actual route of making most of their trailers just completely dialogueless and maybe have a couple screams here and there, but they relied solely on its premise and the fact that it is a quiet place, and I'm glad that they stuck with their marketing. Because when we saw that first trailer, that first little snippet during the Super Bowl, I was like, whoa, what is this? And I knew something like this was coming out, but I forgot what it was called and all that stuff. But once that trailer came up, I was like, okay, now I'm a little bit more interested. And then we saw like an actual trailer come out, and of course Joel and I talked about it. It looks great. And then we asked ourselves on that episode, are they going to go full on no dialogue and just make this complete silent film? Now, while that is not the case, it is majority silence of there's little dialogue here and there. First of all, before I say anything, I will say that this is the best thing that Michael Bay has slapped his name on in years from his Platinum Dunes company.
This was clearly devised during 13 Hours production.
Yes. So I'm glad that John was in 13 Hours, because then this movie would have probably never been made. Not saying that John doesn't have pull in the industry. He doesn't have that much pull, but after this, he definitely will. But I will guarantee that him and Michael talked on set, and he was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty interesting. Bring the screenplay by Platinum Dunes whenever." They probably had a meeting. He probably read it. He probably loved it. Shopped around to Paramount, and here we are. And I'm happy to report that while simple as a whole, it is effective, and I loved it. Like, that's the best way to describe this movie. It is a very, very, very simple movie, but technically advanced, and it's effectively done in its actual genre. So I'm happy to talk about this.
Yeah, and I guess to jump into my negatives, I only really have one, to be completely honest. It's not really a spoiler to talk about something without giving away context about it, and I will just say, and it's also not a spoiler because this is a creature feature, but I will say that there's a big, loud confrontation with the monster at the end. It's not a secret to report that. It wouldn't be a movie like this if there wasn't. And I think that even though it makes sense that they make it kind of loud, a little disappointed that they did that. I think that it kind of interrupts the what am I trying to say? The vibe that they're going for kind of nuanced actions, in terms of just keeping that vibe of very, very quietly, trying to escape. And, I feel like they could have tried to make a way to make that confrontation mostly silent. But in any case, and I thought that the sequel stinger of a final image, or at least that's how I read it, honestly, probably not one, but it is a little annoying. But in any case, that's pretty much my only negative. I think that they when it counts, they kind of revert back to the expected, and they could have veered away from that. I think particularly considering this premise is so insane, I think that they could have taken it to the full maximum insanity, and here they kind of go with the expected, loud, big, violent confrontation. Little disappointing. Not a huge problem though, because it's still effective for what it is, and that's pretty much all I have. So
I actually agree with you on both points. The only slight, like you said, they're not even negatives. It's just more of like
it's sort of like they could have gone down a little bit more
of a nuanced path.
Yeah, a little more nuanced, a little more effective, because I think that for the longest time they are nuanced and effective.
Because I get what you're saying, because what you're saying about the end and the actual like ending shot almost feels kind of generic, almost like they just gave up and just went a generic route. Which, like I said, it doesn't take away the experience, but it is something noticeable because 99% of this movie is just so well done that you're like, when you get to those points, you're like, that seems a little generic to go that route, but
It kind of turns characters into superheroes at a very
yeah,
crucial moment that it doesn't feel organic to the rest of the thing.
correct.
And
It's very sudden, and you're just like, okay,
wait, what?
yeah,
Yeah,
um,
particularly after what had just happened, it feels like they should have ruminated on that a little bit. But
yeah, just a little bit.
yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
But
what Joel's
I
talking
will
about
I will say
basically
that
something.
this is
I was just gonna say something happens, and then like 2 minutes later, it's just like
yeah.
they're switching gears to something else. I'm like, I get that it's a survival movie, but still,
Yeah, it turns a little rah very suddenly, and it's strange. I will say that this is not my negative, but this is something that I think that people will have difficulty kind of grasping is the fact that they become pregnant. Here's the thing. There's a lot of elements here that are very interesting to consider. Uh, Childbirth is not quiet. The labor of childbirth is not quiet, particularly. Children are not quiet when they're infants. That's kind of part of the whole process is that they're crying and getting used to everything. So, not quiet. And also to not to like turn into a tacky person, but the conception of that child's probably not going to be the quietest situation either, right? So, um, it's interesting that the whole character motivation here is surrounding the decision to have a pregnancy. A lot of people are going to not be able to get over that. I can foresee that right now because it's a point that's been lobbed at me within the last few days. That's kind of stupid and it undermines the whole thing. And actually, I think it's the whole point of the whole thing, but whatever. It's going to be something that I have to tell people about, the fact that, yes, Emily Blunt's character is pregnant. Yes, at some point the baby does come in this movie. Not a spoiler to say that either, because again, I'm not revealing context. It's a great scene when she has the baby because of reasons I actually can't talk about, and I'm killing myself because I don't want to reveal anything about that scene. But it actually piles up all of the complications of having a pregnancy in this particular world at this time. It piles all of them on her at the same time. It's a great scene that builds to a really fantastic payoff.
yeah, the pregnancy thing doesn't actually bother me. I actually have like minor questions or like issues with
That's what I'm saying. Like for me, they're not problems, but I can see how they will be problems for people. And I think that there were maybe this movie wasn't the one to do it, but I think that they could have maybe tried to like give us some indication of how all that went down before we got to that point, because there's a jump in time from the opening title basically to I think it's like 473 days into the conflict with the aliens. And in between that time were a lot of decisions that I think the audience will be wondering about in a way that doesn't excuse the movie for not explaining those things. It doesn't need to either, and that's why it's such a weird like line to to balance on, because this is not a movie that technically has to give us a bunch of explanations, and in fact, it would probably disrupt the movie, but there are character motivations here that I think kind of stretch the boundaries of what is believable, and I think that the pregnancy is at the center of that, even though it is actually tied to the whole point of the movie too. So it's just a weird line to cross. It's not a problem that I have with the movie, but I just want to tell people about it, and because it's going to definitely spark a lot of discussion.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure. I actually had more random questions when I was talking to my girlfriend afterwards. I was like, the two Well, there was one shot. I'm not going to say what it was, but it involved a hand hitting something, and they used the typical like jump scare like music approach. And I kind of wish they would have cut that. That's just an editing thing. But here's the question, the main question I had throughout the entire thing, because Joel's correct. They don't really explain much, and they kind of drop you in the middle of everything that's happening. Where or how did they still get running water and electricity? That was the only kind of like major question I had, because they didn't really explain it. So I was like, I understand like, finding food and clothes and traveling by foot, all that's believable, but the whole electricity and water thing, I still don't know if I can get behind, where it's like I can excuse the pregnancy, and I can excuse some other decisions that they make, and even the generic superhero like ending, but honestly it's the running water and electricity thing that bugged me the most.
There are some logistical things here that are really interesting to consider, and I think that the movie, by remaining quiet as it is, does shortchange quite a few of those. Probably by, like design or whatever, but still, again, that doesn't excuse them. There are still issues, even if they are kind of woven into the movie's fabric. And that's pretty much my only thing. To kind of jump into the positives, that's everything else, basically. This movie...
Joel, can we just say it together? John Krasinski finally gets to be the one, the hero, and not Emily Blunt. Because for years it's always been Emily Blunt this, Emily Blunt that. John is a talented dude, and now he's actually the star in this movie, directing wise and acting wise.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they're both terrific here. But yeah, he gets some moments where you don't think that you're watching Jim Halpert. It's pretty amazing. I mean, not just with the beard, because he has a pretty beautiful beard in this movie, but yeah, I mean, they make a great team. Apparently, they were terrified to work with each other, because apparently giving your wife directions is a very awkward situation, as he said on the Graham Norton show this week. And but they're great. I mean, she has some real moments of terror, particularly during her big showcase scene of the pregnancy, of the labor of the pregnancy, which again, I don't want to reveal any particulars of that scene, but it's pretty great for her. I mean, the camera keeps on her almost that entire time, and she's terrific. It's a very physical performance a lot of the time, and she sells it, man. The way Krasinski was talking about it, he had never seen her work because he had never been on set when things were in action mode, if you will, and with her on set. So apparently to watch her work was inspiring to him, and a lot of his performance is reactive to hers, and so they very much are a team, and they're great, and the kids are great too. Millicent Simmons, I said it, I wasn't a huge fan of the movie around her, but she was great in Wonderstruck, and here they've basically built this character around her because Krasinski wanted a deaf child, but he also wanted a deaf actress to play that child because he wanted to figure out how logistically they would work around the hearing impairment, and she's great. She's very expressive. It's a great performance, and Noah Jupe's pretty good too. And they avoid precociousness. They could easily be these precocious, annoying kids, but they aren't, and that's a really good thing. And that's pretty much the performances. I mean, you have a brief one at the beginning, but there's not much of it seen and really to judge it. And so these four performances are really good, and that's that. And then it's visually stunning, shot on film, as to my eye at least, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks. It has the grain of film to me, but in any case, it looks great. Very much captures this. It's sort of interesting because it's like a mundane apocalypse. It doesn't fill it with a lot of grays and oranges like an apocalyptic movie usually does. It's very much the mundane, reality of their situation, but it looks great, and it uses nighttime really well. That's hard to do In movies like this, it's easy to make them look murky, and this one doesn't. I really like that. The sound work is terrific, and no, I'm not making a joke. When everything is quiet, like they do this very interesting thing where sometimes they go into the Millicent Simmons' character's headspace, which means that we can't hear anything, even the white noise of movement. And then they'll cut back to another perspective, and you can immediately tell just by the regular white noise of existence that we're back in the headspace of someone who can hear. And they do that in such a subtle way that's great. And the sound of the characters shrieking is really neat. And all of the end, I mean, even as it gets loud, is they use it to their advantage. It might be loud, but it's impressively loud. And the score is great. It doesn't intrude a lot, and I like that. It's there when it needs to be and when it's effective to be, but it doesn't intrude a lot. Sometimes it does, but I don't think that this movie would have been so significantly better without it. So that's a good thing to say. Let's see. Wow, I just made that noise on live podcasting. Yeah, that's pretty much my positives. It's interesting because this is a very emotionally charged movie, in surprising ways near the end, and I think that it captures that as well. So that's pretty much my final note right there. I can't really go into it without getting into spoilers, so I won't. I won't even talk about that. I will just say that there are emotional moments that are nailed because Krasinski knows how to direct his actors. He knows how to set up these situations. It really announces him as a voice in the horror genre, which I never expected. And he's pretty much an immediate talent in this genre, and it shows in this movie. And so I guess I'm just going to go ahead and give my grade of a B+.
Yeah, so I'm going to just say my grade. It's the exact same thing. But I think the key elements here that work really, really well, because like I said in my opening, I still stand by this and don't twist my words or take it wrong, but the story itself, there's not much known, but it's simple at the same time. Where this movie executes to a master level are four things: directing, editing, sound design, and acting. If you can make those four things believable, I don't really give a crap that your story is very, very thin and minute, and there's not really much known to anything, and it almost seems like your whole movie is like just a huge second act chunk. What was delivered in this movie from those four things was so incredible that I didn't really care, because like Joel said, it's not anything that's like, it's not like an Oscar, type of movie. It was just a really well done creature feature, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you can nail the genre that you're trying to do, or the subgenre that you're trying to do, then just do it to the best you can. And I think John did that very, very well. So starting with his directing, and I guess editing and sound design, because these all kind of intermingle, is that he knows when to use sounds appropriately with the sound design. Sound design is one of the hardest aspects to do in any film, because they create it from the ground up. Most of the time when they shoot audio on set, it's more of just kind of spec audio, where like they just take that and they apply it to whatever editing software they're doing, whether it be Pro Tools or whatever, and they use it as kind of like a reference, and then they recreate most of the sounds in a Foley studio or elsewhere. So the sound design in this is pristine, because like Joel said, John knew when to cut inside the head of the deaf girl, and then when to jump out, which was different from hearing white noise in silence versus hearing nothing in silence. And then of course adding individual footsteps, or the way stuff moved and how it was intricately placed, because these characters had to be quiet so they wouldn't get hunted. So the sound design itself was all really specific on how it was executed, because it had to meld with what the characters were doing, because you can't have out of whack sound design in a primarily silent movie, or it's going to sound really jarring. And so the sound design is pristine. It's filled with tension. It just makes you feel uneasy. Your anxiety runs through the roof, and that is a testament to how the sound design and the editing of the film, and of course the absolutely tense directing that John brought. Because Joel mentioned the pregnancy earlier and how it made a choice to say on Emily Blunt's face, or a couple other choices that he makes, and how and where he likes to focus the action and what is taking place. And that's what makes it scarier with the actual absent of most of the sound, is that you have no idea what's going to happen, and that's where the tension comes through, and that's how it's expertly delivered.
It's almost like the setups to some of these set pieces are generic, but the follow through and the execution of how they're devised because of the sound design makes them a little more unpredictable than they might be in another movie, and that's what's really impressive to me.
Yeah,
is the fact that it's the
unpredictability of, you have no idea what's happening, and like I said, he directs it in such a way to where he will hide a lot of stuff from the audience, and when you topple that with little to no sound, it makes it one of the most terrifying, suspenseful horror thriller experiences I've had in quite some time, where it was effective, and he did a fantastic job with that. And the last thing is the acting. Everyone across the board, fantastic. Emily Blunt, she's always been talented. John's always been talented as well. And if you think he can't do drama because you only know him from Jim from The Office, that's a bunch of bull honky, because Joel and I are huge fans of that show, and we can tell you right now, and we will bet you money on it, that you've never seen his dramatic episodes, because he delivers kind of subtlety and emotion on that show that you would never expect from a goofball like Jim. So he's got range on that show. Honestly,
and I'm going to say something pretty controversial. I think that second to Steve Carell, he was the most impressive actor on the entire series. Yeah, those two right at the top.
Seeing his just to go on an office side note, just so you guys know how talented he is. When you see him in the first two seasons, and he's this goofball that plays pranks, and he's trying to get the girl, and he's being flirtatious, to where he ends up with married and kids and having real marital problems, and problems with
particularly in the last season.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it really calls into question the whole fantasy vibe.
Exactly. And so you see the kind of rawness that he brings to Jim, who we have grown up with as a prankster. Like, there's actual humanity there, and that's why people that typically do comedy are some of the most versatile actors, because they can do drama, and he does that in this one as well. And I'm just so glad that people can finally see that John can do more than just be a goofball that people know him as. I know it's a gimmick, and I know they use this to sell the movie, but it does help that him and Emily are actually married in real life. That chemistry is there. You see the fear in their eyes. You see the survival instincts that they teach upon their kids and teach upon themselves. And you see the quieter moments in the movie with just them, and maybe music playing in the background, is some nice sweet moments that just show you that this is a strong knit family, even in the face of horror that they have to go throughout every single day. The kids are great. I like the fact that what Joel alluded to earlier was that they are not annoying kids, but they do still act like rebellious teenagers, but they're also mature. Like they have
I meant like in the performances, they could have just played up the precocious, rambunctious stuff, and they don't do that. They're very they may not be like the most well behaved kids, but they are.
But they mature quickly because they are thrown into situations that you have to mature quickly from.
Yes, and they're young actors who are asked of a lot of them. A lot is asked of them, and they take that on, and they are up to the challenge, and they do it very well. It's two terrific performances.
One thing I have to ask you, because we didn't really kind of bring it up. Did you like the design / CGI of the creature?
It was whatever. It was pretty generic. I like the close-ups to the ear. I guess it's not the ears, but the eardrum.
I agree.
If that's even what it's called. That was pretty neat. The design of the character otherwise was pretty generic. It was whatever, but I think that the point was I think that they basically focused on getting the ear thing right. It's pretty,
that was cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Unnerving.
To see basically
very
an
weird.
open skinned ear,
that
was
very
disgusting.
strange. Very strange. So that's what I liked about it. Otherwise it's whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, certainly. And the CGI was a little iffy, I thought, but the design was pretty neat. So
yeah. I like towards the end, the CGI got a little bit more apparent, and it was a little off-putting. But some of the shots that they would do from a long shot or a wide shot, that was creepier, because the best way to describe it from a long shot was almost like a gigantic, spider-looking thing that was crawling through the woods. That was creepier. And then
we find out that it's actually nothing like
yeah, exactly.
Like that. I think they definitely work better as sort of a Jaws type thing, where the camera's keeping it out of place, but once they have to focus on it, like in that ending, that's why the ending probably has the most problems in it out of the movie, because one, it's loud, and I think that's a bit of a betrayal of the earlier stuff. Two, it doesn't really have any ideas in it. And three, it's because we actually are having to focus on these creatures that really aren't the most impressive visual creations. It was sort of like when we finally saw the zombies or vampires or whatever they were in I Am Legend. It was just sort of like that, kind of an underwhelming visual effects creation kind of feeling, at least to me. Not as bad as I Am Legend in that respect, but yeah, that's sort of what it reminded me of. But yeah, so B+ from you. Did you have any other thoughts?
No, that was pretty much it. I think you and I both nailed it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that we can talk about with this movie. It's very much about the surprises.
We basically had to just talk about the technical aspects and not more of the actual story and stuff.
Pretty much. There's a lot of strength in the story. We just can't talk about it because it involves spoilers. It's very simple, but it's also very emotionally charged. Like I said, there's a lot of very what's the word? Basically, it's a very concisely built movie, but it does pivot on emotional moments in a way that is successful. We just can't really talk about it with specifics.
Yes,
because it's very hard to do that without giving away the whole thing. It's a really good movie. B+ from both of us. Let us know what you thought if you saw it. If you haven't seen it, please go do so. But if you haven't seen it, I'd be surprised considering the the box office. So I guess a lot of people saw this movie this weekend. It's great. So we're going to go into the second review, which is my own. It's going to be Blockers. This is it's the directorial feature debut of Kay Cannon, who wrote the Pitch Perfect series. And this one stars John Cena, Leslie Mann, and Ike Barinholtz as three parents of three teenage girls, played by Catherine Newton, Geraldine Viswanathan, and Gideon Adlon. Basically, the premise here is that the three girls have entered a sex pact. They're going to lose their virginity on prom night. This is a movie that takes place, it's about 24 hours, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it literally takes place in the night.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's most of it takes place over the night.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah, it opens, I think, 24 hours before it ends. Well, there's a denouement that's months later, but the regular ending is, I think, about 24 hours after it starts. And so this is one of those 24-hour comedies, basically. And the girls are going to lose their virginity, so they've decided that, and it's going to be prom night. But they kind of all three have different reasons for it. The main girl, sort of, Catherine Newton's character, Julie, has been with her boyfriend for about 6 months, which she thinks, I guess, is a long time. And she wants to seal the deal. She finds that she wants to do that before she goes off to college. And that causes her friend, Kayla, who is played by Geraldine Viswanathan, to want to do it, except she doesn't have much conviction in her voice. And then also they have this third friend, Sam, played by Gideon Adlon, who she wants to, but maybe not because it's the male's classmates that she finds attractive. Let's just say that. So the parents find this out because they snoop on their children because they're nosy, and they decide that they want to stop it. There's a lot of problems with this premise, obviously. The fact that this is 2018 and we shouldn't be worrying about this stuff is on top of it. You know, kids are going to have sex at some point. So there's a few problems here, but there are two stories to this movie. One is the parent story. They go on a bunch of wacky adventures trying to stop their daughters from, quote unquote, ruining chances for the future. And the other one is the girls' adventures to try to lose their virginity. And I like this movie. I was not really looking forward to it, but I will just say it's a close call. I think that your grade was like a C+, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you weren't, I mean, you thought it was fine, but you weren't big on it. I'm probably like one up from that, so we're not super far away from each other. I think that the movie really pushes the material with the parents to be the main storyline, which I think is a problem because it's not the one that has the most interest. I think that this movie may have started as a movie about the girls and then kind of pivoted toward the parents once they realized we could probably get bigger stars in these roles. And of course they went to 3 very funny actors, and that's kind of what it became. But I have less interest in that, even though I think that they are all pretty good. A lot of people are saying that Barinholtz is their favorite, and he's fun. My favorite was John Cena. I think that he is the one who has the most asked from him, and kind of goes with the flow, is very much game in a way that Dwayne Johnson would have been to some of this material. He gets he gets to butt chug, and at one point, there's the scene where he enters the house of the parents of one of the dates who have very interesting personal proclivities, let's just say. So he's able to have a lot of fun, and he's a big guy, so a lot of this kind of more embarrassing stuff you don't expect, I guess, him to go through. And he just has fun with it. I think that he's really good, and then I think Leslie Mann's good too. There's a lot here that works about the dramatic parts of their performances, because we get a little bit of a glimpse at the mother's sort of regret regarding her daughter, because she's a single mother. She's raising her on her own after feeling like the pregnancy was a mistake, and so there's a lot of elements there that I think she nails. And Cena, he's overprotective, but for very specific reasons that just make him have he's a big teddy bear, basically. There's not a mean bone in his body. And I think that Barinholtz plays this real needy kind of voice of reason, but in a needy way that was surprising. And I think that Barinholtz really supplied that very well. But the better performances for me, pretty much across the board, are the teenagers. And I think that especially Viswanathan, who needs to be cast in everything now. I think that she's such a natural talent. She really embraces. She's kind of it's interesting because this movie obviously kind of genre or gender bends or gender swaps, whatever. The whole raunchy high school comedy pattern, like formula, to be, now these are teenage girls who are the horn dogs who want action, right? Which it shouldn't feel as new and fresh as it actually does, and that's part of the reason why this movie works, is because it's so willing to take it there. It's a pretty hard R rating, and I think that all of these actresses who play the teenagers are skilled at going there, and especially Viswanathan, who really has this comic energy that's infectious. And so I like them all, and I like the adventure that they go on because there's a real arc to all of those characters, and they're all pretty typical. Obviously Sam is going to find the right person for her, let's just say, and it's in a very progressive, understanding way that kind of reminded me of a very miniaturized version of the arc of Elio from Call Me by Your Name. It's sort of similar. I mean, it's not as seriously, approached, but it's very much as progressive, and I think it's as well-meaning as that. And then you have Iswanathan. She just kind of wants to go rowdy, and then you have Catherine Newton, who people will recognize as the daughter in Three Billboards. She was the victim in Three Billboards, and here she's really good. She really kind of brings across this rebellious, this good girl who wants to be rebellious. And I just think that they're all so good, and that they're the ones who anchor this movie. It's their journey that receives its full due. It's the parent stuff that distracts from the whole goal, but I think it's a well-directed, very funny with a heart comedy, and I liked it. So I'd give Blockers a solid B-. It has a lot of problems, but it ultimately gets through on the strength of its actors. Basically, it's an actors movie when it comes to the comic energy. So that's what I'd give Blockers. I know that you'd give it a C+, and everybody can go watch Chase's review on his page.
Yeah, so if you want to know what my certain thoughts were in certain characters and why I thought it was a little less, whatever, you can go find that out right now. And speaking of the movies that we were just talking about, Joel, they played at Cineplexes this weekend, and they acquired some currency. And so the top five.
I like how you put that.
Hey, you got to mix it up every now and then. After 5 years, it gets a little stale. People want different verbiage. You know how it works, Joel. All right, so here's the top five for this past weekend. Number 5, Tyler Perry's Acrimony with $8.3 million for a grand total domestically of $31 million. There is no budget on that. Number 4, it finally dipped down to below, it dipped down to the number 4 spot. Black Panther with $8.7 million. Get this. Right now it's at 665 domestically, and it's at 1.3 billion worldwide, and it has dethroned Titanic for the number 3 spot domestically. So right now, your top 3 movies domestically of all time include Star Wars: The Force Awakens at number 1, Avatar at number 2, and Black Panther at 3. That is exciting stuff.
And Force Awakens will never be touched unless something incredible happens.
It's that is a lightning in a bottle. It's never going to happen again. Yeah. But that's okay though. It doesn't need to be. If you can reach Black Panther numbers, then you're just still doing good. Number 3 is Blockers with $20.5 million on a budget of $21 million. Worldwide, it's at $31 right now. So with marketing all is said and done, I'd say around 55 to 60 just to be safe. And I think Blockers is the perfect movie for rental. That thing is going to do so well in streaming, it's not even going to be funny, so I'm not even worried about it. And it's
doing well. I mean, this is an impressive debut. Really good. So.
Yeah, especially when you're going up against the number 2 and number 1 slot. 20 million is pretty damn good. And so number 2, Jim Halpert from The Office has dethroned Spielberg for the second week run for Ready Player One, because that came in at number 2 with $24.6 million. Its budget was around $175 with marketing. It probably needs to make about $350 to break even. And right now, domestically, it's at 96, and worldwide, it's at 393. So don't worry about it; it's going to do just fine. Because in China, it is killing it right now. And number 1, this is very shocking. I didn't think it'd get this much, but this just shows you the power of cheap-ass horror films in America. Number 1 is A Quiet Place with $50 million on a budget of 17. So when you double that and you do the marketing, all that, they literally just either broke even on its first weekend or made a little bit back in profit, and it's just its first weekend. So you can bet that this movie
at
do
17 million, this is actually a little more expensive than some of the the recent big horror movies. Like I think it costs
basically anything from Blumhouse.
Yeah, pretty much anything from Blumhouse. Yeah, it's a little more expensive than that, and it's impressive. I'm loving seeing this.
Are you there?
What I'm thinking, because 17 million. Well, they probably it could probably make back 75 million. In which case, it's probably going to do that within the next few days. So
yeah, exactly. A Quiet Place is doing well right now in the spot it's in. But I'm giving any advice to any movie that's coming out between now and Avengers: get your money and run, because it's going to happen. The apocalypse is coming, and you need to just get out and bail. But it was really funny because
Rampage is not going to do anything to this movie. I suspect
no.
that. I mean, even if Rampage is number one next weekend, it won't be by much, and I suspect it actually won't happen. Honestly, I think that this is going to repeat. So, or it could. I don't know. Horror movies don't repeat very well, but
A Quiet Place is. It reminds me of how It did last year, where it was like Buffalo opening, and it's going to have that word of mouth kind of spread.
That's
ironically,
true. That's true. That's
and speaking of Rampage, Joel, that is next week's show. So for episode 226, we are doing Rampage, and are we doing a second movie, or what are we doing?
Yeah, actually, I haven't quite figured that out yet, because it'll be something. I'm gonna have a review, whatever it is. It might be Truth or Dare. Honestly, it might be this little animated movie that I'm interested in seeing called Big Fish in Begonia, which is one of those art house animated movies that opens on Wednesday, I believe, for us. I don't know yet. It could be You Were Never Really Here, which is the new Lynn Ramsey movie, which I'm super excited to see, but we'll see. There's going to be something, but our main review is Rampage, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to it as we approach it. I think it looks kooky and fun, so I'm more interested than I was.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those odd weeks for me, because I'm seeing Truth or Dare tomorrow and Rampage on Thursday, and what a weird combo of movies. Next week is going to be quite interesting indeed, but that will be episode 226, and you know what, Joel? You do a lot of reviews for many websites, including your own. Speaking of that, what are your social media plugs, my friend?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter. I gave that earlier, so you can just follow me there. And then you can follow me on Letterboxd at jcopling. You can read some of my writing at dallasmoviescreenings.com. I've got a couple of movies coming up this week, actually, that I reviewed for them that will be among my big slate next weekend. And you can read my reviews at joelonfilm.com, pretty much all of them. And like this week, in addition to A Quiet Place and Blockers, I reviewed Isle of Dogs, finally. Y'all know what I think about that one. And I also reviewed this little drama called Outside In, which is sort of from the Duplass brothers, although Mark Duplass is only a producer. But it stars Jay Duplass and Edie Falco, and it's about this ex-convict who comes back into his hometown and strikes up an interesting relationship with his former English teacher from high school and that English teacher's daughter, who is currently in high school. No, that is not some kind of hint about where it goes. It doesn't go there. It's a pretty good movie. It's one of those very small dramas, very modest in scope and ambition, but it works because of the actors. You don't see Jay Duplass acting much, and he's really good in this. And so I reviewed that one. You can read all of those reviews as well as my reissued reviews of Iron Man 3 and Thor: The Dark World in my Marvel reevaluation over at my website, Joel on Film.
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee, and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can get reviews like Blockers, or if we don't do Truth or Dare next weekend, I'll have that one up there and all that stuff. And of course, for this podcast, guys, if you're listening on iTunes, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spreaker, wherever you're listening to, and you want to give this show some help, or you want to spread it around, please do so and let people know this is the Definitive Movie Podcast, and this is where you get all your movie information and commentary and reviews. And so that will do it for this week, guys, for Real Me and Colin, a movie podcast. I want to thank you. If you are new, if you're a returning listener, we love you all. Please look out for the future, as Joel and I are going to ramp up this show, whether we change the format and or maybe kind of hopefully starting soon Patreon. And so, look out for that. And so we'll have that here pretty shortly, hopefully sooner than later. So we'll see you guys next week for 226, where we talk about Rampage. So we're going to talk about a walking animal banging up on buildings and, of course, a gorilla. So, sorry, that joke didn't land. Anyways, that will be next week for 226. But yes, all the links will be in the description below. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm tired. I apologize. I am definitely off for tonight. But next week I will be back and ready to go. So we'll see you guys next week. Peace out, everyone. You guys are awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.